and I'm your host, Matt Groves. Thank you for checking this out. Thank you for tuning in. Got a few announcements here before we get started. But just a quick note, we're going to be talking a little bit of, most of the time we're talking about some eventing. We'll do some review from last Tuesday stream as well. Got some things I want to cover there. We're also going to hopefully spend some time talking about JavaScript today. I've spent most of the time coding in C# and some SQL, but we're going to dip into JavaScript today. Although maybe not the JavaScript you're thinking of. We're not going to be, you'll see anyway. And then probably some Docker as well, which is the area I'm most concerned about because I am not really much of a Docker expert. I just haven't know enough to get by. So let's see if we can stretch my Docker knowledge and experience. And if I say Docker enough times, maybe Robert Tables will show up to spread his expertise. Okay, so a few announcements. One is Team Live Coders. So if you're new to Twitch like me, you probably aren't aware that there's something called Teams on Twitch. And it's just a group of a bunch of different channels that all work together, not work together, but all stream about similar sort of things, have similar interests. And so the Live Coders channel is one that I believe C# Fritz started. This guy right here, C# Fritz. And, oops, trying to get my zoom in going here so I can show this on the screen a little better. C# Fritz right there. Not the guy in the video, but that little icon there, C# Fritz started this group. And it's a bunch of people like myself who are on Twitch, and we do these sorts of things. We teach about code and promote technical community, that kind of stuff. And these are sort of the requirements. And there's a GitHub repository that talks more about it, how to become a member, that sort of thing. Anyway, I recently became a member, so I achieved that affiliate status recently. I think I mentioned that. Well, this guy looks really hyped right here. Anyway, I achieved that affiliate status, and I was able to get an invitation for the Live Coders. And so you can see my name down here near the bottom. And Codephobia also joined recently, and Gep13. Lots of people on there. So check this out. It's the URL up here. I'll zoom in so you can get a little better view. Twitch.tv/team/livecoders. And I think, it's relatively new. Hey, Carrie Payette, thanks for stopping by. And thanks for the bits. I've never gotten bits before, so I don't know what I'll do with them, but thank you. Anyway, this is trying to spread this out amongst time zones pretty well. Pretty good coverage amongst the world. So if you drop in, you'll probably be able to see somebody live coding and streaming about something. So definitely check out Live Coders there. Okay. I got to figure out the bits thing. I don't have a custom animation for the bits thing either. I don't think I expected to get any bits. So I'll have to figure out what that is exactly. But anyway, Carrie Pad is, of course, now the top bit giver. So thank you very much, Carrie. Another list, kind of similar thing, but a little different, is the Awesome Developers Streaming list. And Carrie Pad just subscribed. Thank you so much for subscribing, Carrie. I appreciate that. Definitely check out Carrie's stream as well. I think it's Twitch. She's on the Live Coders thing too, so we can go there just to give her a quick plug. I think it's C Payette, but it might be Raspberry Payette or something. Let's see. You're in there, right, Carrie? Yeah, here we go. C Payette. There. I hope I'm saying Payette. Payette. One of those things. She was streaming yesterday about some really cool Raspberry. I think Raspberry Pi stuff and some water sensors and cool hardware, stuff like that. So definitely check her channel out. Yes, now she can use the Calvin head emote, which is the bada bing, bada boom. A custom emote. I guess that's available to subscribers or something. There you go. So that's shorthand for bada bing, bada boom, which is one of the ways we can celebrate on this channel. All right. So anyway, this is a GitHub repository. It's not Twitch specific per se, but it's a list of developers who are doing your cool live streams. Carrie, I don't know if you're even in here. You definitely need to get added to this, Carrie. All you gotta do is send a pull request, and just add yourself to this README Markdown file. But anyway, this is a list of live streamers who do live coding, all kinds of different live bits of live coding. So you can see some of the different languages and tags that are in here. So we'll just pick out a few here, like Ardala, Steve Smith, yeah, of course, C#, ASP.NET, and DDD and stuff like that. Very cool. We can keep going, like Dev Chatter's another one doing C#. And you can see yours truly here, doing databases, Couchbase, SQL, also C#.NET. And then, like Carrie, I'm more of a dilettante, but I'll dabble in soldering and electronics and stuff like that, and some VR and podcasting kind of thing. And I just did a quick search, which is kind of what this is for. Carrie equals random dev stuff. My list would be a mile long. Yeah. Well, that's okay. Narrow it down to a few things. I think definitely people will be interested in this kind of stuff you're doing with Raspberry Pi and electronics and stuff. Am I awesome at soldering? Well, maybe, but my kit's not working, so maybe I'm not so awesome at soldering. I'll have to get on the late night soldering stream going here soon to follow up on that, because I got a new multimeter and stuff. Anyway, yeah, so I just did a quick search for data, which is what you can do here. Just open this up in browser and do a Control F and search for something of interest to you. So I was trying to find other people who are doing database stuff, and I didn't find much. So this is my call to action for you watching this. If you're into databases and data stuff, start live streaming, because that's a niche that we don't see much of here in this list of live streamers. So get out there and do some coding, some data coding. So Shirley Wu here is doing some data visualization, which kind of is adjacent to what I'm really into. I dabble in visualization a little bit. And then Ted Young using Spring Data. So again, Spring Data, the whole Spring framework thing is a Java framework, and that's a tool for interacting with databases, and also kind of my thing. But not much in the way of data here in these listed live streamers. So get out there and do some data string. But there's lots of other stuff, lots of game dev, PHP, JavaScript, there's Rust, PowerShell, Lua, Java, C#, all kinds of stuff out here. So whatever you're into, find yourself a streamer and check them out. Okay, so let's go back to my list here. All right, down to business. So I want to take a quick second and review some stuff from the stream last time. I was working with some Dapper. Carrie says, much cleaner than my soldering. I bet the PCB you got is bad. Entirely possible. As I said multiple times in that stream, it's like a dollar kit. So entirely possible that the PCB is bad, or one or more of the components is bad, or got damaged in shipping, or who knows what. So I think I'm going to take a page from your book, Carrie. The next time I buy a kit, especially the cheaper one, I'll buy like half dozen of them. So one of them is bound to work, right? So anyway, I wanted to go back and talk about some online store stuff. I was doing some Dapper and some SQL, and we got to a relatively complex example here. So let me just close this up. This is Visual Studio 2019, which I was doing some live share the other day, but I want to bring this up here. This is the repository we were working on. And the idea, no, this wasn't it. This wasn't the repository. It was, where was that? Online store, customer, because I did the join and everything. Oh yeah, it's down here, yeah. So I was creating an endpoint to return all the orders for a given customer. So a customer can have one or more orders in our online ordering system. And what I started with was this join here, to join the order to all the order items. And the tricky part about this is that how do I actually take the results of this query, this join, and put them into a collection of C# objects? And so we'd gone through some exercises with Codebase Alpha, and what we came up with was just kind of a system of, okay, do one query to select all the orders, and then do, for each one of those orders, go ahead and do another query to select all the details of the orders. And what we'd end up with is, if we said, say, 5 orders, then we would have 6 total queries, right? So 6 orders would have 7 total queries, etc. So that would just keep going, higher and higher the more orders there are, and that's fine. And actually, we could do that here. It wouldn't make much difference for what I'm doing. But in the long run, I think that could be a really troubling performance problem. So what I've done instead is I actually experimented with the group by a little bit. So I did this join query, and that returns the order, and then so it's going to return the order details, but it's going to return total number of rows equal to the order items. So if I had 6 items on the order, it would return 6 rows. The order data would be repeated in each of the 6 rows, which is not really what I want. I want to combine that into an object that looks like this. So I've got the online store order, contains the order ID, the purchase date, and the customer ID, but also contains a list, a collection of items in the order. The thing is, if I'm using a real ORM, like a full ORM, like Entity Framework, it would handle that sort of stuff for me, because I would be putting all the mapping information in there, and it would do basically this mess right here for me. But I didn't really want to bring an Entity Framework and do all that just for this sort of kind of throwaway sample simulator application. So I decided to stick with Dapper and just take a little bit extra time to do this group by in memory here. And so that's just what that is doing. It's getting that root, the aggregate root information of the order and putting it into the object. And then it's going through the rest of them and getting all the online or the order item information and putting them into the class there. So this, I think, is this query combined with this group by here, I think is more performance, more efficient. There's only one query out to the database. The trade-off here is that it's not as easy to read as what Codebase Alpha was sort of walking us through the last stream. So because of that, it's not as easy to read, which means it's harder to maintain. So when I see those situations and I see some code like this and it's kind of hard to get your mind around what it's doing, this is a perfect situation to put in a comment. And I try to be as thorough as I can with comments like this. Generally speaking, I am anti-comment. If that's not maybe a positive way of putting it, I don't like to write comments in my code unless I absolutely have to. So whenever I see a comment, it means one of two things to me. One is that I did a bad job writing the code to make it understandable on its own. So that means I can do some refactoring, some renaming, things like that. Or two, the comment really needs to be there because there's some piece of code that's just kind of difficult and hard to read as is. Now, I might be able to refactor some of this, like maybe this part here, and I can embed that in this part here. And I could factor it out into multiple methods and maybe make it a little more readable, but it's still going to be a little confusing, especially since I don't think group by is, you don't see this very much out there in the wild. It's usually hidden behind something like Entity Framework. Carrie says, I do use comments mainly for demoware for articles tutorials. Cuts down on the article tutorial text length when commented inline. Yeah, sure. For teaching purposes, comments totally fine. But there is in my mind, there's a risk of comments, and you see, little joke pictures about this all the time, is that comment is just text. So if I were to change something in the code and I forget to or didn't realize I had to change the comments, now the comment could become out of date and the comment could now become misleading and confusing and a liability of its own. So in order to minimize that, we minimize the number of comments. But certainly I'm not going to be an extremist and say never use a comment. Like I said right here, here's a good example of a place where a comment definitely belongs. And as Carrie's saying, if you're putting it in instructional code that ultimately is not going to be in production and maintained, then that makes total sense to put a comment in there just as another teaching tool. Absolutely fine. And then of course, if you're creating methods for public API, it's always a good idea to put something like this sort of comment structure on the top there, so that when people are discovering your methods, public methods especially, they can look at the information about that method. Okay. But anyway, this is what I came up with. It's kind of, you have to understand how group by works, but maybe it would help if I actually showed the results of the query. store.db. So I'll bring this back up because I think I had done this in the last stream. I'm just doing this off screen here. Make sure it works. Customer ID equals, let's just try 4. Okay. So I've got my SQLite administrator over here. And maybe it's kind of hard to read. I don't know if I can make this font bigger. Okay. But it's the exact same query that I have here, except I've actually plugged in a number for customer ID, which is 4. And so when I execute this query, it's going to return a result like this. Now, if you notice, a lot of the order information gets duplicated, right? So order ID and purchase date, they're duplicated because it's the same order. But I'm joining it to the product information, and there's 4 different pieces of information for the product. So what this means is basically these 6 cells here, from here up to here, are redundant. And these belong in a sort of sub-entity of the aggregate, a collection that belongs to the aggregate root. So I need to translate this flat data that I've stitched together into the more into the more appropriate C# model. And I thought this was a great opportunity to also talk about, because we're going to be using it in future streams. Oh, I'm seeing some error messages about dropped frames. Uh-oh. I had a problem with this once before, and the video did not turn out well. Poor network connection is usually what that means. So let me just make sure I message anybody else in the house to cut down on the streaming. Carrie says it's looking fine from her side. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm just going to send out a message just in case. Please don't stream any video for a while, just to eliminate one possible cause of that. Because I did a whole stream of podcast editing one night, and it was about 2 hours long, and the video afterwards on Twitch was dropped down to like 10 minutes. That's how bad the frames got dropped. So anyway, seems to be fine now. I haven't seen the error message, but I'm still seeing a 9.4% dropped frames. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, this is a good example of sort of a contrast between the 2 approaches between relational databases and non-relational databases, or NoSQL databases, or as I like to call them, SQL++ databases. So we have here, in relational, we've got this order and order item. They're split into 2 different tables containing flat data, and you stitch them together by using this foreign key, which right here is order ID, which says, okay, this item belongs to this order. This item also belongs to this order. And then this item belongs to order 2. These 4 belong to order 3, etc. So we're splitting up that data. This is called normalization of data. And this goes way back to the 70s with the invention of relational databases and tables and schemas. Now, in our C# program, if we go to online store order, in the program itself, data is not stored that way. It's stored together as one aggregate root object that contains the order information and a list of the items. And this kind of makes sense from a domain standpoint, is that if you ever get an invoice or something at a car dealership, it shows you, it has one order, which is one piece of paper, and then all the different items, line items on the order. So here's the tie rod end replacement, here's the alignment, and here's the oil change. All those things are different items in the order, but they're all part of one single document. So in relational, you would actually have to, it wouldn't be a document, it would be 4 different pieces of data that get split up, and you have to then assemble them into one order. And in the C# class here, we actually store that in a way that makes sense in the domain. It's all stored in one object. And this is how it works in the NoSQL, the SQL++, the non-relational world, is that data is stored as one document containing the items in it. So there's no normalization. It's actually denormalized data. It's nested the data into one single unit of data called a document, typically. And we typically store that as JSON. So it's good to kind of see the 2 approaches there. And so there's some pros and cons to both approaches, right? The con here is that we have to assemble this data with a join. We have to do some extra work to map it up, either this group by here or some sort of entity framework, mapping, configuration, things like that. Yeah, tie rod ends are actually fresh in my mind because we just had to have them replaced in the family van, and picked it up this morning. I don't know, proprietary socket sizes. Yeah, I never tried to do a tie rod end myself. That's, I can do basic stuff like oil change, and I even replaced an alternator once. But tie rod ends, it's just like I'll let the pros handle that. So anyway, that's sort of the trade-off. Is you have this flat data that's very structured and very fixed and orderly, but you have to do a lot of extra work to assemble it, disassemble it. Whereas you have the NoSQL approach, which is the data makes more sense in a domain sort of fashion, but you get a lot more flexibility, a lot more responsibility on your application. So anyway, I thought I would just point this out in case Codebase Alpha was tuning in, or he tunes in later to watch this video. He can see the decision I went to make here was slightly different than what we ended up on in the last stream, but ultimately I think this is the right balance of performance versus extra work we have to do. I do no repairs on anything anymore. Too many sensors to get confused and agitated. Well, you're probably right. The cars we have around here are still pretty old. Like my truck is a '99 Ford Explorer, so I can still get by with the really basic repairs and stuff. But these newer vehicles, they're very sophisticated pieces of equipment, and yeah, I maybe do an oil change on them, and that's about the most I would do. Okay. So just reviewed that. So I also filled out this get product details, which I said last stream would be very, very simple, and it is. And let me just wrap it around here. It's just getting the data from the product table, actually do an additional mapping in here just because Dapper isn't able to figure that out on its own. Product underscore ID is the same as product ID. Otherwise, it's very straightforward. Select one row of data and put it into an online store product object. And so that creates the whole all the repository methods I need, and those just wire basically directly into my online store controller. It's just almost directly a pass-through to get products and get orders. And I've got a little bit extra validation here, which we covered last time on the stream. So that API is all done, and I'll just go ahead and show it to you here. Let that build and pour myself a little drink. I don't drink G Fuel like all the cool kids do on the streams. At least not yet. I'm still drinking regular old Coke Zero. I probably would have some coffee, but the coffee machine is currently not available. So soda it is. All right, so here's the online store API, and we can get customer details by email, and see if I can remember what some of the emails are. I just got cooler yesterday. Honestly, it takes, I'm sure you meant to say tastes, like very sweet Kool-Aid. I'm not sure that's really selling it for me, but okay. We'll try this out, see if this email address works. Okay, there we go. So that is able to get a customer, Carolina Johnston, just by Carolina's email address. And then I can now now that I have the customer ID, which I guess is 1 here, I can try this out and say, give me that customer. So here's the customer, and all she has is 1 order with 2 items. So here's the first item. She paid $120 for 4 of whatever this product is, and $40 for 1 of whatever this product is. So now I need to look at what the product is. So I can take the product ID, which is 210, and put it in here. And we can see that it is a blouse. So it is 4 very expensive blouses for a total of $120.54. So maybe that's not expensive. I don't know. I don't buy blouses. All I wear is regular, free conference t-shirts. And, well, I got this one because I liked it. It's got little... You can't really tell, but it's got like a little flecks of white material sewn in. It looks like a star field. Anyway, so I don't know what the price of clothing is. I really don't. I just put random numbers in here. So anyway, the online store API is up and running. So at this point, if I can bring up my old friend here, this diagram, the Customer 360 system, which I've been working on since the beginning of the stream. We've got the Kafka part up and running. We've got the CSV. So that data is already in our integration bucket. And the next part is we have the REST API, and the integration bucket is going to be pulling from this API. It's going to be making requests to the API to get information. So for instance, let's say Carolina's information came in here from the home delivery system. This integration system would then say, okay, I have Carolina's email address. Does she have anything in the online store? And let me pull that data in and combine it into my Customer 360 system. And just kind of show you an example of what's going on. I ran some of these integrations earlier. Actually, I think they're still running. So you can see that this is the staging bucket. It contains data that's been pulled in from the home delivery and the loyalty program. So here's an example of loyalty data that's been pulled into Couchbase. This is just loyalty information, including loyalty points. And then here is some data that's been pulled in from our from the home delivery system. And you can see here's the, that's not a great example, this one right here. You can see this payload has been pulled in right here from the home delivery system, which obviously would contain their address for us to ship their stuff to at their homes, right? So we have this piece of the user, we have their address here, we have their loyalty points here, and we want to ultimately combine that with the online store stuff coming into one unified document in the in our Customer 360 system. So Carrie's question, is that like a scheduled ETL job or pulled on demand? So good question. To recap this, the Kafka stream is real-time. It's not a scheduled ETL job. It's a real-time stream. Whenever a change happens to this MySQL database here, it will be put into Kafka via a connector, and then which is called a source in Kafka. And then Couchbase here is acting as a sink that subscribes to this stream, and the data goes into Couchbase in the form of a document. So that is a real-time stream. The loyalty program is on Postgres, but we're actually designing that to be a nightly CSV export. So this is more like an ETL job. It's scheduled to create a CSV file every night, and then there's another job running that will read that CSV file in every night as well. And this, in this case, is going to read in the entire loyalty program membership data into the system every night. So the point of this tutorial, .commie, hey, thanks for following. I've recognized you from other streaming channels, so thanks for stopping by and checking out my stream. And thanks for playing the bada bing, bada boom sound effect, which is also an emoji, by the way. No, not emoji, emote. Sorry, emote. And so the third part is sort of the opposite, Carrie. It's a pull on demand from this. So the point of this tutorial is I'm not actually trying to build a realistic system, but I'm trying to show that there's different ways to pull data into a Customer 360 system. In reality, you're going to have to likely integrate with lots of different data systems and lots of different methods. It could be a Kafka stream, it could be a CSV import, it could be some SSIS, ETL job, etc. But ultimately, you have to get all that data and put it into one place, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. I'm just demonstrating, in this case, 3 different ways that we can start to build our Customer 360 system. I hope that answers your question. But it was a very good question, so thank you for asking. All right. So I've got this API. So right now in my Customer 360 bucket called staging, I just have loyalty and user delivery information. And so when one of these documents comes into Couchbase, I need to write some code. I need Couchbase to basically understand that, hey, I need to go check the online store REST API to see if there's any data that I can pull in the process of combining all this data together. So that leads me to this part right here, the actual 360 assembly of data in Couchbase. And so what I want to have happen is I'm going to have a bucket. I'm going to call this Customer 360. We'll just give it a small bucket. So right now in the staging bucket, a customer is split up amongst 2 pieces, loyalty and user or home delivery. I keep forgetting home delivery, user and home delivery. Now what I want to end up happening is in this Customer 360 bucket for there to be a document that might correspond to an email address, like foo@bar.com. Okay. Inside that document is going to contain things like first name, last name, etc. But it's also going to contain a cross-reference. Maybe we can call it something else, but a cross-reference object. This is a nested object, and maybe the first one in that nested object is home delivery, and it contains the address information here. And then another cross-ref would be loyalty, which might contain points here, 75 points. And then finally, online store, which could contain things like the orders, which would be an array, etc. Right? And so inside this document, just give some spacing here, we have one single document to represent a customer, a person that's interacting with our retail business. And within this one document, we can get a complete picture. We can say, oh, hello, Mr. Groves, thank you for calling. I just want to make sure your address is correct. I see you have 75 loyalty points. Maybe we give you the opportunity to increase those points or use those points, etc. And online store, I see you've placed an order recently. Is that what you're calling about? .com, I assure you I've answered this every stream, but why Couchbase? Genuinely curious. I have not tried it before. Well, it's a good question, .com. I guess probably one of the main reasons would be that I'm an employee of Couchbase. To be fair, that would be one of the main reasons. But another reason is Couchbase. We have a lot of customers that are actually, if I can find the URL for it here, this is actually a very common use case for Couchbase customers. Here we go. Is the Customer 360 sort of use case. A single view of all your data on one platform. You can query it and do some analytics on it and consolidate your data across your enterprise for whatever your end goal is, whether it's total transformation or just sort of a single platform to run queries and analytics on. And it's a much deeper question of why Couchbase is particularly good at this, but I don't want this to turn into a Couchbase commercial. But the short answer is I'm an employee of Couchbase, and kind of a little bit longer answer is Couchbase is good at Customer 360. And I'm writing a tutorial for the Couchbase website about Customer 360. So that's all the reasons why. But this tutorial is not just using Couchbase. We're using, back to this graphic here, this is MySQL, this is Postgres, and this is SQLite. So I'm interacting with lots of databases in this stream, in this tutorial. Okay. I'm happy to talk about Couchbase all day long. In fact, that's basically my job, but I don't want to get on too much of a Couchbase rant. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes. So now there's once you have all these different sources of data and you bring them into a Couchbase bucket, which by the way is a good reason to use a NoSQL database like this, because I can import the data into these buckets, much like you would with IoT. It doesn't matter what shape they are. Couchbase can import all that stuff and it can just bring it on in here, and don't have to define the schema or worry about changing the schema and things like that. But I can collect all this bucket. It's very good at ingestion, data ingestion. But once the data is in this bucket, there's lots of things we could do to actually start combining this data together into our single view of a customer in the Customer 360 bucket. So I could, for instance, write another C# program, another .NET program to actually go in here, look at the staging bucket, find the customer data, and then update or create a document in the Customer 360 bucket. I could do that. In fact, and there's nothing wrong with that approach. That's totally fine. C#, Java, whatever Node program you want to do to write that, totally fine. But again, since this is a Couchbase tutorial, I thought it would be interesting to demonstrate one of the cool capabilities of Couchbase, which is this eventing service. And this is relatively new to Couchbase. But if you are familiar with relational databases, they have concepts of things like store procedures and triggers and user-defined functions, and basically functionality you can create and store on the database itself. Carrie, Hangfire, that's this scheduled job worker, right? Yes, that is correct. Absolutely correct. In fact, I'm using that for this project to schedule the CSV export and the CSV import as two recurring jobs. So right there you can see Hangfire. It's scheduled to run in 8 hours and then 9 hours, the import or the export and the import. I'm using Hangfire to schedule those. Now I don't have to use Hangfire. Lots of other ways. You can just do a simple cron job. Lots of different tools you can use for that. But I happen to like Hangfire, and it fits in nicely in the ASP.NET program. Not to mention, again, going back to Couchbase, there is a Hangfire plugin for Couchbase to use Couchbase as the data store for Hangfire. So I thought I would use that and showcase it as well. I've used that in other projects of my own. I like Hangfire quite a lot. So the eventing system. So I was talking about user-defined functions and triggers and store procedures and just basically types of code and functionality you can actually store and run on the database itself. Now with Couchbase we have something similar to that. It's called eventing. Eventing is one of the many services that you can choose to install when you install Couchbase. So I've got the full gamut of services here except for text search. All right, so the basic ones like data, index, and query are important. So I do have text search. I also have analytics and eventing. They're all here. I'm probably not going to use analytics or search for this tutorial, so we're going to be data, index, query, and eventing. The eventing service allows you to do several different things, but one of the main things it does right now is you can actually add functions. So let's do a little housekeeping here first. So I'm going to say eventing metadata. So we need a bucket to hold eventing metadata. Buckets are just like databases in Couchbase, just a collection of documents. So eventing, I'm going to add a function. The source bucket, so the bucket I'm going to look at for data that comes in, that data that changes, is staging. I'll look at new data coming into staging. So that's going to be data that's coming in from Kafka, coming in from CSV. It's going to be coming into the staging bucket. I have to pick a metadata bucket. Doesn't really matter what it is. I'm going to call this the customer 360 function. And this function monitors staging bucket and creates, updates combined customer records in the customer 360 bucket. Now to this function we can specify some parameters, which we call bindings in this case. So I'm going to start with staging. I don't need staging. I'm going to start with customer 360. I'm just going to call this the let's call this the cust. So inside this function, I'm going to have this object called cust, and that refers to the bucket I'm going to be adding things to. All right, so I just have alias for that. So next we're going to add some code, and right here you can see we've got to some JavaScript functions, and these are just sort of shell functions, just placeholders here. But there's two functions, onUpdate and onDelete. So the onUpdate function, again, it's kind of like a trigger, but not really a trigger. The onUpdate function will execute when a document is created or updated inside the bucket that I'm monitoring. And the delete function then is executed when a document is deleted from the bucket that I'm monitoring. And then I can just write plain JavaScript in here to do stuff with it. When I say plain JavaScript, it's JavaScript plus a little bit of extra functionality to deal with some of the Couchbase constructs and other functionality. But it is using a JavaScript engine. You can actually even debug it with the Chrome debugger, as we might get to. So I have this, go back to here, I've got one function name called Customer 360. I've not deployed it yet, but I can actually go in here and edit the JavaScript. And this is where I'm going to be doing all the logic to monitor a staging bucket and combine those records into the Customer 360 bucket. So for instance, we're going to say, so a document comes in, that's this doc method here. If doc is from the home delivery system, then get the appropriate information from it. Stop trying to complete my code. And create or update the corresponding document in Customer 360 bucket. Okay, so that's an if statement. Another one would be if the doc is from the loyalty system. It's going to be the same sort of thing, right? And at the end, we're going to say, okay, now based on the email address, so if one of those two things above happened, based on the email address, make a HTTP request to the online store REST API and store any online store order information about this customer in the corresponding document in Customer 360 bucket. So this is where the integration is happening. This function right here, this onUpdate, and this function will fire. It will execute every time a document goes into or is updated in the staging bucket. So now you kind of see why it's called the staging bucket. It's kind of like a backstage for the Customer 360 system itself. All right, so I'll just comments here, so I'll save this. And so then once you have a function, you actually have to go and deploy it. And deploy it, it'll take a minute or so to actually deploy, and then it will start listening to the buckets and stuff will start coming in. So I actually want to just do a test of this. And I was recently writing a blog post about this, so I have an example I can pull in, I think. Actually, maybe not. But there is some old examples out here. So the problem is that this is a Couchbase 6, and this part here, the HTTP request, that was actually something that was in developer preview in version 6, and they've made significant changes to the API, breaking changes to the API in version 6.5, which is not out yet, but will be soon. So I got to figure out how I'm going to approach this on the stream, because for the tutorial, I need to use the new functionality, but I also would have to then use an early build. So I need to figure out the what I need to do for that. But just as an example here, if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. I did a blog post on a proof of concept I did for the Cincinnati Reds, who is a Couchbase customer, where I did something very similar to this. Well, no, not really. But I used the curl function to send out text notifications using Twilio in this case, but you could also use Nexmo, for instance. To send out text messages to notify the Red staff that certain VIPs have arrived in the ballpark, and hey, let's go and go check on them and bring them their whatever they need for their special room, their concierge or whatever. Instead of having to go and check on them every 5 minutes, maybe they didn't show up, maybe they never show up. Once they scan their ticket at the gate, well, we know they're here. Let's go take care of those VIPs. So I'm going to just try to pull from this blog post some of the curl stuff that I did, if I can find it. Yes, right here. So what I want to do, just to sort of test this out, is I'm going to make a curl request. And what did I call the bucket for this? I should have written this down. But it is cust, which points to the Customer 360 bucket. So let me just make a note that cust equals Customer 360 bucket. Okay. So then when a document comes in, I have that document's key. So I could, for instance, create a new document in the customer bucket. and I'll just make this just some arbitrary JSON. Hopefully this will work. So let's just say foo and bar. All right. Oops, I just tried to control save on that. I may want to just construct this piecemeal. So, whoa. So that, geez, this happens to me all the time. I'm working in Couchbase here, and I'm writing some code, and I try to hit F5, I try to hit Control S. I'm working in a browser. Those things don't work the way I expect them to in Visual Studio. So, all right, let's just try this again. We'll start doing this piecemeal. Object.foo equals bar. And then I want to say object dot, I don't know, the weather. And we're going to put something in there for weather. That's going to be from a curl request. We'll get to in a second. And then I want to save that into the Customer 360 bucket. Okay. So now the weather thing, I know I have a blog post written about somewhere. There is a free, completely open HTTP API to, I'll try saying that 3 times fast, HTTP API, to get the weather for a given city. So if I just remember the URL for that. This blog post has not been published yet, so I'm not going to show it to you. But there it is. So the URL is like that, / that. All right, so that is and I can just bring this up in a browser here to show you the API. It's a API that you just give it a city and it'll tell you the weather. No authentication or anything like that needed. So here's the API for it. It's called Open Weather Map, and here's the API doc for it. You can see this is a really basic example here of like this, and I can put in a city name like Columbus, Ohio, and it'll needs an API key. So it does need a key. Huh. It's interesting, because I thought I was able to get an example without using a key, or without having to create a key. Oh, that's interesting. It has a link to it here, but it puts a key in the example. So anyway, there you go. I could change this to, I don't know, Columbus, Ohio. I think that'll work. So it looks like there's a light drizzle. Well, it still says London. Huh. That's weird. That doesn't matter. The point is, it's an API somewhere. I'm going to pull in this data and store it in my object during eventing. Okay, so it's just going to be an API like this. Huh, okay. There's samples. So maybe samples has some predefined data for London. Let's try that right here. Page not found. Okay. So that should be the correct URL. samples.openweathermap.org. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter what it is. It's pulling in some data. So I'm going to make a curl request. And the way you do this in 6.0, which is actually changing, so don't do this going forward, because this is a developer preview and it actually changed, is this is going to be a get. And the URL, let's say URL, is like this. Put the URL in there. I don't think I need to pass any data to it. I don't need to pass any header to it because I'm not actually posting anything. And for auth, so this was for a Twilio example, which does need auth. I don't need the auth on that anymore. So what I expect this to do is when a document comes into staging, I'll get rid of this part here too. When a document comes into staging, I'm going to start by creating a new document, put a foo equals bar on there, then make a REST request to get the weather and put the weather in there, and then save that object to the Customer 360 bucket. So let's go ahead and save this. And I have to deploy for that to actually work. So let me just change some settings here. I'm going to reduce the number of workers to 1, which is a tip that someone at the Couchbase told me that makes the deployment go faster. Obviously, in production, you wouldn't want to do this, but okay, execute for all invocations henceforth. So that just means every document that comes in, we're going to execute this for. All right, so we're going to give this a minute here to deploy. This is just running on my local Windows machine. Actually, this is running inside Docker on Windows. And it's just a single node, nothing too complicated about this Couchbase cluster here. So as it deploys, it's actually going to put some data into this metadata bucket. And it uses this data to keep track of the events, the workers, and so on. This is data that I shouldn't mess with. I will not mess with, in fact. But just wanted to point that out while we're waiting for this to deploy. Do the thing. Okay, I'm doing the thing. Okay, deployed. So let's open up another window here. Let's try to do this. Let's try to put one window over here and one window over here. So I've got a bucket with staging, and actually it should probably already be triggering that event because I've got 38 items in there already. And look at that. It's actually got 38 items already in the customer 360. So actually I don't need to do this, but maybe we'll just do it anyway. But you can see what this event has done is it's done exactly what I told it to. It created a document with the same key, and I put the foo bar, and then I got the weather from that curl function and stored it here in the document. But what I want to demonstrate, if I may, is the debugging feature of this. So I can go into Edit JavaScript. There's this debug button down here. And what I want to do is I'm going to go back to Buckets, Staging, and I'm going to hit Debug. Debugger is disabled, huh? When did I disable the debugger? Is that because I have workers down to 1? That can't be right. I don't think I turned off any sort of debugging. That must be it, right? Okay, interesting. So I'm going to undeploy this, which I have to wait for it to undeploy. Because I basically want to demonstrate the debugging part of this, because it's actually pretty cool. It uses Chrome's built-in debugger. Because we're using JavaScript, you can actually step through this with Chrome. Undo the thing. Yeah, exactly. Okay, it's undeployed now. I guess I'll just change this back to 3 workers. And deploy. And we're just going to everything. We're going to do from now, so I don't need to run those 38 documents again. LOL. Are you having a laugh at my? Oh, the undo the thing. We'll do the thing and then undo the thing. And we're doing the thing again. Is that Fritz's catchphrase or something? Do the thing. That's definitely an emote. Geez, 54 minutes into this stream. The time is really flying. So I've got until 3:30 blocked off for this stream. So we got some time. Yeah, it's definitely one of C# Fritz's emotes. Okay, we're deployed. Okay, so let me go back to my side-by-side view again. And I'm going to edit JavaScript, hit the debug button. Oh, why is it? That's weird. Why is it disabled? There's no reason for that. Unable to start debugger as it is disabled. I'm pretty sure I never checked a disable the debugger setting anywhere. Advanced query settings. Oh, no. Node availability. That's not related. That's not related. Huh. That's a weird one. Under eventing settings. Oh, is it up right here? Oh, okay. Apparently I did turn it off. Weird. Oh, okay. Maybe it's just not on by default because it's recommended not to have the debugger on for production. Okay, my mistake. It has nothing to do with the workers after all. So that's complete red herring. Where did I put my other window at? All right. Let's see if we can get this to work. Yay for checkboxes, gotta love it. I don't know about that. All right. Staging bucket. I'm going to put a new document in there on that side. But first I want to attach the debugger. Hello, debugger. Do I have to refresh this page or something? Because I just hit the checkbox. Okay, there we go. All right, so then you get this little pop-up here, and it's basically, it's going to wait for something to happen, wait for me to put a document in before the debugger kicks off. Much like, you know, you set a breakpoint, and it'll wait until the program's running to actually attach to it. So I'm going to put in a new document ID. Let's just call it Matt testing the debugger. Okay, and so it's already actually created the document, but I'm going to go ahead and save change to it there. And now a URL comes here. You see it's Chrome DevTools URL. So I'm going to copy that URL, paste it into another window. And what's going on here? Did we squish it? Did we lose it? Where's my debugger? Oh my goodness. I'll try this again. Oh, you know, I was playing around with this and I might have squished something I didn't want to squish. What am I doing here? Profiler. Memory. What is going on? Let me try incognito. Yeah, this is bizarre. You know, I probably should have tried this before the stream to make sure I had everything. Yeah, it's supposed to come up something like this. All right, let's try it again. Stop debugging. Debug. And add new document. Take 2. Waiting for that mutation to come in. There it is. Paste it. Where is the code? What is going on here? I literally was just doing this yesterday. Am I doing this wrong? Yeah, see, I was doing some watches yesterday. Why was WebSocket disconnected? Okay, you know, I think I know what it is. I know what it is, because I ran into this problem before. Okay, so the problem is that I am running this inside Docker. And debugging needs certain port numbers that I did not expose from Docker. And when I was doing it yesterday, I was doing it on a Couchbase running outside of Docker, which has access to all the ports. So that's why it's not working. So I'll come back to it later because I don't want to switch back to the Windows Couchbase. Anyway, the idea is it would show you this code in your standard Chrome debugger. You could set breakpoints. You could watch the variables. You can see the console output, all that kind of good stuff there. But fortunately for us, it worked the first time. And I've got documents going into this Customer 360 bucket. Now, this isn't exactly the transformation I want. I don't really care about the weather for my Customer 360. Although you might. Maybe you want to bring in weather as part of it or some other API. But you can kind of see where I'm going with that. I'm pulling in data from this REST API, which I'm going to be doing, except I'm not going to be using weather, I'm going to be using my online store API to pull that information in. All right. Okay, so that's kind of the process there. I need to just write this all these integration code here, which is going to be a little bit of an effort to do. So why don't I just do a restart here? Let's empty out this customer 360 bucket, which I think I need to. I can't just say delete from customer 360 because there's no index on it, right? Right, there isn't, so I need to create primary index on customer 360. Delete from customer 360. So that clears out that bucket of those documents. We don't need those in there, okay? Go back to eventing. We'll edit some JavaScript. All right, so basically I'm going to be constructing a customer document. And I'm going to be using some other URL to do that. And actually that is the other thing I needed to talk about today. Let me bring back up my little text thing. All right, so we talked about how functions work in Couchbase. We talked about curl. The next thing I need to do is, since I'm running this in Docker, I need to put my online store, my simulator program, into Docker as well. And that's because otherwise, because everything in Docker sort of lives in its own host, its own Docker playground. And if I'm trying to access something outside that playground, that's trickier because I need to figure out a way for Docker to access that and it'd be on the host machine in this case, which might be possible, I guess, but it's probably a better idea to just package up this simulator into a Docker image and run it inside Docker. So I planned for this from the beginning. So I think I already have, if I bring this back up here, Visual Studio, I think I already have a Docker file right here, which Visual Studio created for me. And you can kind of see it just uses this .NET Core image as a base, and it's going to, it looks like it's going to actually build and publish the project inside Docker, and then run the DLL file in Docker there. So it's going to do all that stuff for me. The only thing I'm not sure about is actually linking this Docker image to, or linking Couchbase to this Docker image, or vice versa, right? So I don't necessarily want to execute Docker right now, but I do want to maybe build this Docker image. So let's do that and see what happens. So just down here, step 1 of 18, 5 through 18. So it's doing all the stuff in Docker. It's pulling some stuff for the base image. Good. Still working. So what I kind of want to see is, I want this to show up in my Docker images. And it looks like it's right there. That was 2 weeks ago, though. Here's the other image I built from one of the earlier streams. But this is the one that I wanted to create. But that's a 2-week-old build, so I'm building a new one here. And I just want to see if that's going to get replaced. So this created should change to like 5 minutes ago. So we just have to wait for this to chunk along. Still going. So hopefully this will only take this long the first time. It's downloaded all this stuff, and the second time forward, the second, third, fourth time, etc., should be much faster. Skipping project because it was not found. That's interesting. They should have found it. The core was not found. Oh. I should reference the core, though. Interesting. I dropped on you, but back now. Oh. That's interesting, because my dropped frame percentage has gone down. I haven't seen any error messages about it. So hopefully it's on your end, but that makes me nervous. I lost a big chunk of video there. We're building a Docker image. That's what we're doing right now of my ASP.NET project, because I want to run this inside of my Docker host. Using a preview version .NET Core. Oh, what happened here? Got some error messages? Huh? What is that? No overload for a use routing takes 1 argument. This trying to build with some other version of ASP.NET? Why would I get errors for that? So what showed up here? Okay, so 38 seconds ago. Oh no, here it is. It has none. Well, that's not good. I don't want that one. Oh, no such container. Yeah, I want image. Images being used by stop container B0C5F. What is that one? B0C5F. Is there something that's running? No? It must be on my side, hopefully. Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't want this one. This one, I think, failed. I think it's done. For some reason, it doesn't like that use routing. Image is being used by stop container B0C. I don't see a B0C. Do you see a B0C anywhere? Oh, here it is. Quirky Snyder. Yeah, so it tried to run it for me. I wanted to run it though. Docker stop Quirky Snyder. Docker remove Quirky Snyder. Okay. Now I can remove this image up here. Okay, fine, but that doesn't explain this error message. Unless this Docker file says using ASP.NET 3.0.stretch.slim. What am I using for this project? I thought it was, yeah, 3.0. That's unfortunate. We've got some sort of mismatch here, I believe, between this base image and what I'm building with. So why don't I go check out this on the hub, I guess. The Azure Container Registry, right? That's what I'm looking for. They just moved from Docker Hub recently. But I want, oh, wait. How do I find the, no, I don't want to watch a video. ASP.NET, it might still be on Docker Hub anyway. I think I remember them talking about having it in both places. ASP.NET 3.0 stretch slim, somewhere out here. MCR micro. Let's just look .NET, probably out there. Microsoft.NET, and we've got .NET Core, ASP.NET. Yep, that's it. So we've got 2.2 and 2.1. I don't see a 3.0 on here. Oh, here we go. 3.0. Stretch Slim. 3.0 preview for Stretch Slim. Oh, boy. So I needed to make sure that Stretch Slim. So what does this one correspond to? This corresponds to preview 4 19.2603. So I need to make sure I'm using that same version, I guess. Which, how do I find that out? Is that going to be in the CS Proj? Edit. Mm-hmm. 3. Oh, it's Newtonsoft. It's not what I want though. ASP.NET Core, I don't see it in here. So this might be another tricky thing with having ASP.NET 3 is not exactly out yet. It's in preview. I'm trying to remember how. Well, I guess I can look at the folder, right? Because that's usually still in program files, right? Microsoft. Nope. Where does it put the .NET SDKs at? What I want is .NET oh yeah, it's in program. Okay, it's in DOTNet. That's right, DOTNet, and then I've got SDKs, and right here I've got 3.0.100 preview 3. So I may have out of date preview here. You see all these old versions I have installed. Because my Docker file is pointing to preview 4 19.216. So maybe I'll just do an update here and see what's causing this build error. That's kind of what I'm getting at. .NET Core, SDK. I don't want the 2.2 version. I want the preview. Where are the previews at? Preview. Here we go. Okay, and this is what I want, right? I want 19.216. Oh, I don't see 19.216 here. Some good old yak shaving, live streamed for your viewing pleasure. This is yak shaving live. Latest preview Visual Studio 29. So, I may be just shooting myself in the foot by using .NET 3 here at this point because I don't have the Visual Studio preview yet. I can enable SDK previews in Visual Studio. Yeah, this was the thing I was looking for. So we go to Project Solutions .NET Core. Bring up Visual Studio again. So I could try to just downgrade this to 2. Then I gotta change the Docker file and everything. So it might be a real pain. Just like what Fritz went through the other day, versioning. Yeah, it's one of the great things about Microsoft doing all these releases is that you get to play with all the latest stuff, and they get it released more often. But the downside is if you're on the cutting edge like this, if you're trying to work on the cutting edge, then not everything's going to work as smoothly as if you're sticking to the mainstream released type of stuff. So we'll see what I can figure out, and if we can't get much farther in this, then I'll abandon it for some other task. But let's see. Go to options here, and it was where was that? Project solutions, general. So .NET Core. So this is, yeah, I have it checked to use the previews of the .NET Core SDK, but I don't think I have the latest preview of the .NET Core SDK. So let's do that. .NET Core for Windows, runtime and hosting bundle. Is that what I want? Or do I just need this? Or do I need both of them? Let's just get both of them. Why not? And runtime and hosting bundle. Let's just do this. .NET Core installer. Those are going to download. I wonder if I can clean up this old folder like this 1.0 preview. If I delete this, is that going to cause any problems? I don't think so. I'm definitely not going to be using the 1.0 preview anymore. So let's just get rid of that. And these 2.1s, I mean, I don't know if I really need these either. Clean it up while I'm here. All right, well, they're all downloaded, so let's just try running some of them, see what happens. Okay, preview 4. You can hear the birds out there through this microphone. They're really loud. There's a bird keeps flying into our window, our kitchen window, yesterday and today, making a lot of racket. Our windows aren't that clean. I'm wondering what the bird's trying to do. It's got to know that it's a window. It's something you can't go through. But it keeps, I think it might be trying to mess with our cat or something. I don't know. But I can hear him out there chirping like crazy. Okay, so it doesn't look like it installed anything new. Makes me think I already had this installed. Where's that other file at? Right here. Runtime. Tape an X on it, maybe, on the kitchen window. So actually, I think we had like some sort of decoration in the window, like a big wooden sign, and the bird was flying into that part of it. So it was very confusing what the bird was up to. I don't know. All right, let's try this again. I've got I guess the most updated .NET 3.0 preview runtime and SDK installed. And that hopefully should match up with this Docker file, the base image. And let's run it. What are you doing here? I want to build Docker image. Come on. Oh, I guess Visual Studio is still loading up some stuff here. Yep, there we go. That ought to do it. Build Docker image. Maybe I just didn't see him. Okay. Let's see what happens. Same error message. No method for use routing takes one argument. That doesn't make any sense. Let me do a little Google here, see what I can find. Ah. I don't need all that information. No overload for use routing takes one argument. It's got to be use routing specifically. This is toString, all this stuff. Yeah, I got to be compiling against some different version of it. Oh, now it's got squiggles. Oh. Oh, that's good. Are you saying that this part is gone? Oh, okay. All right, all right. Maybe we're on track then. Let's try a build. Okay, now let's try a Docker image build. Maybe we got it. It's possible that they simplified this use routing API between preview versions. What we got here? Is this another do the thing? No, this is compiled. Yes. But the problem before was Visual Studio was saying it's fine. But when I ran it against Docker, there's a different version of .NET that ships in the Docker base image. It said it's not fine. So we end up in a weird situation because of the different previews. Visual Studio says one thing and Docker build says another. I think that's what's happening, and I think installing the latest previews has addressed that to make Visual Studio understand that, hey, this is an error in the latest build or the latest SDK, and then I can fix it. Looks like it worked. Okay, terrific. So one thing this does, and I'm not super keen on, is it actually, oh, maybe not. Oh, okay, I thought it was actually running it, but it's not. It did create an image right there. Excellent. I don't know what this one is. Maybe I'll delete that, but let me try removing that Docker. That might be just a remnant. Yep, okay. What we got now? Ship it. That's a Robert Tables thing, huh? Oh, I don't want that one. I want to do images. Okay, so I got this one. I don't think it's running. I don't think it ran it for me. Let me just double check here. This font is so big. Debezium, Enterprise, Couchbase, Debezium, Postgres, Debezium. These are all Couchbase. None of them images that I wanted. Okay, terrific. So now I want to start an image like this. So Docker start, and let's just do it it-rm name, and we'll call it my simulator, and we're going to link it to, yep, Robertables, is that how you pronounce it? We're going to link it to DB. I think that's all I need to link it to. And I want to expose a ports. What port does it actually expose? Does it say? Right here, 80 and 443. Okay, so I will expose those two ports. Port 80 and port 443. Although, probably I can never remember which side is which of the Docker. Robertables, where are you? Because you would know this offhand, I'm sure. Which side is the external port? Which side is the internal port? I gotta look it up. Docker start. Looking for specifically the port. Huh? Docker start. That's where I'm at. Where is the -p? Well, maybe it's maybe it's not start. Maybe it's run. Maybe I got the wrong command even. Oh boy. Yeah, I got the wrong command. It's Docker run, not Docker start. Legend says if you say containers 3 times, he'll appear in your Steam or your stream chat. Revertibles, revertibles, revertibles. Okay, -p. That's what I'm looking for. Where are you? Publisher containers ports to the host. Okay, but which side is which? How do I assign a port mapping to an existing? That's not really what I want. See, a lot of times it's the same port number on both sides, but what I'm worried about is I already have something running on port 80, I think. And so I want to expose it as a different port number. Oh, here we go. Public port, private port. So I assume private port is the one internal, and public is the one that's going to be exposed. So we'll do it like this. 8080 and 443, I don't know, 1443. Does that sound reasonable? And the image is Cust360 simulator web. Let me just make a copy of this. I think that's right. Womp womp womp. Specified framework was not found. Shouldn't that be in the image? The following versions are installed. 02. It's looking for 03. So we still might not be lined up properly. All right, well, I don't want to fight with this yak shaving anymore right now on the stream. So I might just call it for the day. Let me just make sure there's nothing else to cover here. Yeah, so I need to figure out how to get this to run inside Docker because I will be calling it from here with curl. It will be something like this. It'll be simulator port 80/API/online store, whatever. It's going to, I don't know, customer email equals fooitbar.com. Something like that. It's going to make the request, pull the online store information over, combine it with the delivery system information, loyalty information. We'll have all 3 of those together in one object, and that'll be it. Customer 360 system ingestion part anyway is done, and I can start working on the tutorial to take you through all these steps one by one. But I need to get it working first, just to make sure I'm not just whistling Dixie, as they might say. I want to make sure that it works for me and I understand it before I start writing about it. Even though the concept to me seems pretty clear, I could write about the concept, I can talk about the concept, but I need to have a completely working sample to pull from and to point to help people if they have any problems along the way, to refer to code samples in my tutorial and such. Alrighty, well, I want to thank, let's see, Carrie for joining me. I want to thank .commie for the follow today. Thank you for stopping by and chatting a little bit. I will be back. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Carrie. I will be back Tuesday at the very latest, but hopefully I'll get some time to break out my multimeter and give it a try on the stream, or maybe do some VR streaming. I don't know. Still want to get that Vacation Simulator game and play some of that, but haven't got around to it yet. Haven't got time yet, but hopefully get on that. So we'll see you tomorrow at Star Trek there, Carrie. Anyone else? We'll see you at Star Trek all day tomorrow, Friday. I'll be there, checking out the cool stuff going on, helping out with sessions, and hopefully going to see a movie at the end. So everyone else, have a good weekend. And that's it for now. Later.